The most important piece of how prospects determine if they're going to hire you is that first impression. Do you want to have your phones answering fast? Do you want to have a robot answering your chats, or do you want to have a person?
Well, hello and welcome to another guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and we're going to be talking all about chatting on your website. And I love this conversation because back in 2000, I think it was 2019. So every year, Clio does a legal trends report. And in 2019, they studied, this might have been the 2020 report. I have to look it up. But anyway, they studied 2,000 law firms, and what they did was they contacted the law firm as if they were a client seeking services. And what they found was that 66% of law firms either got to a voicemail that never got a call back or just went unanswered. So that's 2/3, right? So it was 67%, something like that. 2/3 of law firms, and that means 1/3 of law firms was actually answering the call and treating that prospect, as a prospect in that conversation, which, I mean, for the longest time, that has been the front-running conversation for legal answering services. Like, you want to make sure that your call is being answered by somebody, but the world is changing, and people are looking for information. They're looking for it quickly. They're looking for timely responses, and they might be perusing the web at, I don't know, say like 11 o'clock at night when you don't have anybody in the office. So what happens with the little bubble on your website that says, I have a question, ask us here or chat with us now? And there's so many instances where somebody would choose that option over a phone call because they're sitting in a meeting and they can't pick up the phone and call, right? Or they're laying in bed and their spouse is sitting next to them, laying next to them sleeping, and they can't be calling and chatting on the phone, but they want their question answered. So people are watching videos with captions all the time. They're chatting on these chatbots, and the question is who is responding to that chatbot for you? What is the conversation that they're getting? Are they getting your voicemail, right? Are they going to this black hole where they leave a message and it says, yeah, we'll get back to you when we reopen? What exactly is happening? So today, I've got a guest that's going to help us answer those questions, that has a service that solves that problem. And we're going to dive into the value of this, of that service, whether you should even have this on your website. That whole conversation is going to happen on this podcast episode. Before we have that conversation, let me just tell you real quick, at Profit with Law, we have basically 3 ways that we work with our clients. We work with small law firms, solos, and baby law firms who are trying to grow to their first $2 million in revenue with our elite coaching program. We work with larger firms, $2 million to 15, 20, 25 million in our fractional CFO services. And then we work with everybody with our tax services. And we don't just do tax prep during tax season. We have tax planning relationships with our clients throughout the year. And as is obvious from previous podcast episodes, there's always conversations around different things that you've never thought of when it comes to tax strategy. Who's having those conversations with you and, for your business? So if you want to find out about working with us in any of those areas, it all starts with a free strategy call with one of our team members, where we can help you figure out what is the next step in your journey and how does Profit with Law fit into that. So if you want to grab one of those free spots, we only do about 8 to 12 of them a month. You want to grab that at profitwithlaw.com/strategy session. profitwithlaw.com/strategy session. Our guest today is Ted DeBettencourt. Ted is a 3rd-generation Martha's Vineyard native. He's been in legal marketing for 12 years, earned a JD MBA from Case Western Reserve, and before starting Juvo Leads in 2015, he ran a legal marketing agency in Boston, helping law firms grow through SEO PPC. Well, one day, Ted was using existing chatbot companies that are on the market and didn't like the way that they were answering the clients. So he fired them and started answering it himself. What started as one person answering chats for a few small firms in Boston turned into a team of a little under 100 chat agents answering chats for about 1,100 firms around the country. That is wild. But who else to talk to about chats and answering chats, and who should be behind the curtain of your chatbot is Ted DeBettencourt. Ted, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here today.
It's my pleasure to have you. Really appreciate you giving of your time and expertise with our audience. So Ted, real quick, just give me your broad strokes. How did you get into this? What makes you an expert around chatting, aside from what I just shared?
Well, that was pretty much the story. I was answering chats myself for my 5-10 clients in Boston, and then I didn't like what the existing chat companies were doing. And just to get the language right, so we don't use bots. Chat bots implies there's a robot answering. So in the legal space particularly, you want chat butts. Chat butts means real people answering chats 24/7, 365. And there's a whole industry for chat bots, and there's an industry for chat butts. Butts meaning real people answering chats. And 90% of the top 3,000 PI websites, I think it's closer to 95% now, are using some type of chat software, whether it's a bot or a butt. Right now, butts are usually a little bit more expensive because it takes real people to man those chats, but not the behind, but an exception too, they are able to get a lot more leads than a robot right now. AI is coming out, it's getting better, it's improving, but right now, if you were to have a conversation with a robot, pretty quickly, you'd be able to tell that it's you're chatting with a robot instead of a real person. So we use real people for our chats.
Okay, so great. I understand that, and thank you for clarifying that for our audience. But let's dive into I'm a numbers guy, so let's dive into the numbers, okay? Mm-hmm. I work with clients all the time, and they're like, oh, I need more leads. As a matter of fact, we just had our Law Firm Growth Summit, and I did a talk and the name of the session was "You Don't Need More Leads." And really what's happening is that, people are ignoring the fact that there's something that happens after the lead, and the lead might even be one that you can't count because you don't know. Somebody came to your website, but they didn't actually take an action, like make a phone call or type in a message on your chat, right? But they were a prospect. They were looking for a solution, and there's a reason they didn't take the next step. Mm-hmm. So the hidden secret sauce in businesses that we help with increasing their profitability significantly is finding those situations where you've already invested the marketing spend, and you can just make a change, and that change can result in more clients where it's not requiring you to go out and find another lead source to spend more money on Google and so on. So do you have some of those numbers, like what percentage of people are showing up to a website and wanting to chat, but if you don't have a chat there, you're missing out? What's the math?
Sure. So what I can tell you is kind of the opposite number. So, and by showing you the opposite, when you put chat on your site, how many more qualified leads you get, we can deduce that the opposite is true. So if you don't have chat, you're missing out on this many. So if we go on, and I'm just using PI because that's probably about 60% of our clients are PI firms. So if you go on a PI website and there's no chat there, and then we go on, we give the client, the firm, a free 30-day trial, they'll get at least 50% more qualified leads. And I use the term qualified because that's determined by the firm. Every firm has different rules for qualifications. So looking at the numbers, let's say the month before chat, before they use Juvo Leads, let's say they get 100 leads. That's 70 phone calls, 30 forms. And then the next month when they use chat, they'll get 150 total leads. Let's say 30 forms, 70 calls, and 50 chats. So their total leads went up 50%. But from that, we can determine that we had 50 new conversations that they wouldn't have had but for chat being on their website. So that means when they aren't using chat, they're losing about 50% of their total leads because people want to have these communications with them and they want to have them instantly. They can do that via chatting, via texting, via LSA messaging, via GBP messaging. So there's all these new ways that people can communicate with law firms, and we allow firms to offer those to their clients without having to have the manpower to do it themselves.
I love this starting point, because the first point is, should I be doing this in the first place? 50% is huge. I mean, let's just put this in perspective. If you're currently doing $1 million in revenue a year, that's the difference between $1 million and $2 million.
Yeah.
If you're doing $4 million in revenue a year, that's the difference between 4 and 8, right? Like, it's doubling the amount of clients that you're bringing in, because if you're having double the amount of sales conversations, then you're going to be closing double the amount of clients.
Well, 50%, but yeah.
Well, it's 50% of their total leads, right?
We increase their leads 50%. Yeah.
You increase it 50%. Okay, so it's not doubling. Let me just rephrase, go back, rewind. False information. We want to make sure we're giving you accurate information. If you're $1 million business, that's getting you to $1.5 million. If you're a $4 million business, it's getting you to $6 million. Still a lot of movement for just putting a chat bubble on your website, or making it possible for somebody to communicate through all these other channels that Ted just shared. So now let's talk about, there's a lot of options when it comes to putting a chat on your site. What are people's options, and why do you do it better?
Sure. Well, the baseline is the website chat. So pretty much all the companies out there can do the website chat, but then there are the other places where people can communicate with you via some form of chat or something similar to chat. So the first option is SMS. So can people come to your website and send you a text message? If they can't, that's a problem. You're losing leads there. If they can, who answers that? A person or a robot? You want a person answering it, because people get pretty frustrated when they realize they're chatting with an AI chat system. Right now, you can tell the difference. Someday you won't be able to, but as of right now, you can. The next option are the LSA messages. That's a common ad type that Google offers. Has 2 calls to action: LSA messages and LSA phone calls. Everyone wants to get more phone calls, but the funny thing in the ranking algorithm, how you get more LSA phone calls is you answer LSA messages fast. So having those LSA messages on and answering them fast, by having us or a company like us doing it, will get you more LSA phone calls, which is kind of a weird way to think about it, but just how the system works. And then the last one is the Google Business Profile messages. So there's all these new ways that are out that are basically a text, a chat, a message, an SMS that you should have somebody answering. And by doing that, you're optimizing your chance to not only get those messages, but also rank higher in LSA, rank higher in GBP, get more bang for your buck on your website with your ad spend dollars. So the more options you have for your consumers, the more leads will come in. How we do it better than the competition, it really depends on the competition. One of the things that we do is we use real people. Some of the bot companies use robots. Some of the other companies that do real people, the chat just isn't up to par. And by that, I mean, it takes too long to reply. The answers are often syntax errors. They're kind of just following a script that they're ad hocking on the fly, and they don't sign retainers. Whereas every chat that we answer that comes in is graded on a 10-point scale, and our agents are hired, fired, promoted, and demoted based on how fast and how well they answer chats. By having that level of quality control, we ensure the highest possible conversations for our clients. And the higher the quality of the conversation, the more leads and cases they get. Because if you're not doing chat bad, is worse than doing no chat at all. Because if someone starts a conversation and they screw up that conversation, they're going to leave a bad first impression with that prospect. They're going to go and have a conversation with another law firm. So doing it right is more important is the most important thing. So that's the number one thing that we do.
Now, are your agents actually signing up retainers on through chat? Like, is that happening?
Yeah, probably about 30% of our PI firms will go ahead and sign retainers. So it's usually a higher quality lead by which we sign a retainer. And it's not required, as I said, only about 30%. But for instance, let's say we're working with I'm sorry?
Only. That's a big number. 30% is a big number. It's 30% of 50% of your leads. That's 15% of your total lead volume getting signed up on retainers through chat. I mean, that's pretty incredible.
So how it works is maybe the firm will say, hey, Ted, I want all car accident leads in my state, Texas, wherever they are. We say, all right, get them car accident leads with injuries. But then they say, hey, Ted, if it happened within the past 30 days and there were injuries and they got an ambulance and the person you're chatting with was the one that was injured and the other party had insurance, then offer them a retainer. or maybe they say, if it's night, so our team isn't on. So they can set different parameters by which we sign, but that's kind of the rules we use.
Got it. Now, what was going through my mind when you were describing this was one of the challenges that firms have is like trying to understand when they do off platform marketing. So billboards, radio, TV, that kind of stuff, where it's very hard to gauge that that's where the business is coming from. You can't use different phone numbers because the phone number is something that they want people to remember from one thing to the next. So they don't want to have to like change the number based on where it's coming from. Are you finding clients are using text in those types of advertising? And then the text, because it's like, hey, text, the word accident to 74372, that now we can know where it came from.
That can be done. It's not really a huge driver of leads for us. What we see is when clients start using billboard ads or any type of advertisement similar to billboard, radio, TV spots, is they drive a ton of direct traffic. So the biggest way to measure that is measure your direct traffic pre-running that campaign versus post. It's not a perfect science. I love the idea of those vanity numbers for text messages, but the reality is they're just not a huge driver of leads for our clients.
I wonder if that's simply because they haven't thought of doing that, but
that's probably true for a lot.
And also it requires changing the commercial, right? So like, we're going to go back and re-record because now we're going to tell them to text, call this number or text, blah, 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 or scan the QR code on your TV screen. I think that they can get so much smarter with how they're doing those ads, and
for sure,
couple that with your chat service. It's a winning formula. All right. So we understand the value of having chat on the website. We understand the value of that being answered by a live person. Do you do 24/7 coverage?
Yeah, 24/7, 365, English and Spanish. Don't ask me how much I got to pay my employees during Christmas and holidays. It's, we got to bonus them pretty substantially to get that coverage, but it's just kind of the way of the world, and the speed to lead matters. We answer every chat in under 12 seconds or less. So we're able to get really good response times, which results in more cases for our clients.
Yeah, I think that's really important that people don't think about, right? And I've heard the word speed to lead used in different formats. So, a lot of times marketing agencies who, are doing, outbound dialing for you, they'll try to tell you this is the way to go because, the speed to lead is important. But really it's, does somebody want to sit on hold? Right. So if they call your business and your phone doesn't get answered right away, do they want to sit there and listen to your hold music, or are they going to hang up and leave? And that's what happens in chat too. And I don't know. I mean, I guess our listeners probably have experienced this. I mean, I know I've experienced. I've gone and tried to use a chat. As a matter of fact, my experience with some poorly monitored chat situations is the reason that I don't like using chats in general. Right. Like because somebody didn't do it right is why I just assume that nobody else is doing it right.
Yeah.
So you can really change the experience. And I wonder if people are getting 5-star reviews on Google saying, their chat was super responsive.
Well, I'll tell you what's true. And that was the impetus that made me want to start the company. I was trying the chats that my now competitors are using for my clients. I was just like, hey guys, like, you can't say this, you can't say that. I was waiting for 45 seconds here. What's going on? And I was like, this whole industry needs a shakeup. So we try to provide that shakeup. So I'll tell you this, we're not generating a ton of 5-star reviews, but if we do a bad job, we'll generate 0-star reviews. One of the biggest reasons that we get clients from some of our competition, who I won't say the names, is a client will have a bad experience with a chat. We'll go on and write a negative review for that law firm. That law firm will get ticked off, said, hey, we use these guys, they did this. Does this happen with you? Nope. I promise you, we'll give you a better job. You don't get any negative star reviews from us. We give them a free 30-day trial. They see the difference in quality, and they stay with us past that 30-day free trial. We have a 97% retention rate for firms after that 30-day free trial with us.
I love it. Okay, so what haven't, I mean, we discussed the algorithm of what they might be answering behind the scenes, right? What haven't we discussed about around this? I mean, once we, it's no longer a bot, it's a person. It takes away okay, I need to have all this whole algorithm behind. We've got a person who's able to understand what the other person is saying. Do you get a ton of workflows from clients as far as what the possible things somebody might be reaching out for would be?
Yeah. So when we onboard a client, we ask for, the reality is 90% of the chats we can determine upfront probably what they're going to be asking. It's that 10% that we find out over time what particular questions that we'll ask that particular firm. So when we start out pretty strong, but then at the 30-day review mark, when we review the leads, we sit down with them and go through the chats. You had a funny chat that come in that asks about this particular practice area. We use our default. That's a great question for a lawyer. Let me set you up some time to talk with them. But is there a better answer we can say? So we really analyze those chats after they've come in, because we can predict, 85, 90% of how the conversations will go. But there's always that 10 to 15% that we want to get feedback from the law firms on. And we do that periodically throughout the relationship, but definitely at the 30-day mark of the free trial.
Now, you did mention that you have primarily personal injury firms that are your clients, but I think that personal injury was the first to adopt the digital marketing landscape, and the rest of the practice areas are kind of getting in line, right? Yeah. And, family law attorneys, estate planning attorneys, criminal defense attorneys, they're starting to spend money, big money in, the digital marketing space. They're beginning to understand the value of these leads that are coming in and how quickly they get answered. I foresee that this is a really valuable service for them as well. And it just might be the tailwind effect of who you got first versus who's going to be coming in now.
Yeah.
The question is, for those firms, often there's a paid consult on the front end, right? Are your chat folks able to sell that paid consult? I mean, it could be made really easy as far as the checkout page, Calendly, whatever. There's ways to get that set up. But is that something that they'd be doing?
Yes, but we do it a little bit differently, and it depends on the firm and how they want us to do it. And I completely agree with your point. Whereas the PI, they were kind of leading the way, but we're seeing every year the percent of non-PI clients we're getting is increasing every year. So it's just the widespread adoptability of our services and services like us for the family law, the crim, the bankruptcy, the estate planning. For the PI, that's the only practice area we're currently signing retainers for clients. For a bankruptcy client, for a family law client, we're scheduling a lot more consultations on their team's calendar, bankruptcy in particular. So, for example, they'll say, hey, Ted, when you get a good lead that meets this criteria, pass it along to us, but also offer the chatter if they would like to book time on our Calendly. My chat agents will literally book that for them, so it just appears on their calendar. And we've tried it a whole lot of different ways, and it doesn't have to be Calendly, but that's the primary tool. So we can take that lead to a different conclusion for different firms. For some family law attorneys, we are saying, hey, our consultation is $100, $400, whatever that rate is, and that will go to the cost of the case if you decide to retain us. Some family law attorneys are having us give that information and then have them talk to their intake team to find out more. Some are just having us pass the intake team before we try to collect any money on those.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like, why not get them to pay for that consult right there in chat? What's interesting is that, we make people jump through hoops to become a client of ours. And, our goal should be less hoops is better.
Yeah.
I recently sat down with one of our fractional CFO clients and we went through their process of like, what happens when the phone rings? And we created this gargantuan flow chart.
Yeah.
And when we looked at it, it was like for somebody to become a client, they had to talk to 4 different people. They had to ring through, 17 different times. And, there was just so many movements. And I said, well, what if we just change the way the phones get answered? Like, what if we just have that intake person be the one taking the call? And if it's not a lead, have them pass it to the receptionist.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's going to be annoying to the intake person, but who do we care about, whether the intake person's annoyed or whether your potential client's annoyed?
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it's crazy because that alone could be the difference between getting a client, not getting a client. And, we do these silly things. So, I would be the first to tell my clients, hey, if the service is offering for you to do this for them, take it and run, right? This is pretty incredible what you built. How long did it take you to get this far to, 100 agents? And
No,
I imagine you don't have 100 on at the same time. You got
no. Yeah. We're probably have 35 on right. Maybe no, probably about 45 on right now. About 10 years now. I mean, I started answering chats for my clients in 2015. So I was chat agent number one, answering, kind of setting up rules, and just realizing, hey, when I do it myself, I'm getting my firms a lot more leads, and they're turning into a lot more cases. So I thought, hey, maybe if I systematize this, I might be onto something. And 10 years later, I realized I was.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. But also, I mean, there's so much opportunity for you. And the way I know this is because I've been doing this podcast since 2019, working with law firms, since 2018, and I never heard of you. So, there's a lot of law firms out there that probably haven't heard of you either. So, I think there's a ton of need in the marketplace, and I'm excited to just give you a platform here to share with everybody about it. Okay, as we wrap up, I mean, we're heading into the close of this episode. I want to ask you two questions. One, what is one parting piece of advice or wisdom that you want to leave with our listeners? And number two, how can they find out more about you, your service, getting in touch with you, maybe that 30-day trial you mentioned? That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. The most important piece of how prospects determine if they're going to hire you is that first impression. Do you want to have your phones answering fast? Do you want to have a robot answering your chats, or do you want to have a person? You want to put your best foot forward with the first impression. Human-powered chat is the best way to maximize the amount of leads you're going to get from your website. So just want to have you think about, do you like chatting with robots, or do you like chatting with people? When you call your cable company, when you call your cell phone provider, and you have to press 7, then 8, then 4, then 3, then 9, then 2, then 1 to talk to a person, do you like that experience, or would you just rather talk to a person? We provide those people so you can give the best first impression to your prospects. If you want to find out more, go to Juvo leads.com, and you'll see my video pop up. Have a conversation with my team. Try us out before you buy us. And we give you a free 30-day trial so you can see us in action for your firm, so you can see how many more leads you get before you make a buying decision.
How complicated? I know this is the end of the end of the program here, but as you're sharing this, how complicated is the tech? Like, how easy is it for somebody to just add this to their website, and put it in place?
Super simple. A little piece of JavaScript, you put it in your header or your footer. That's the easiest part, is to add the code. Going over the chat scripts and getting those right, that does require one meeting where we sit down with you to understand your prospects and do that. So that's a little bit more involved. A 30-minute meeting gets it done, but adding the code takes 20 seconds from your dev team.
Awesome. Love it. Ted, thank you very much for being here, sharing all this information. I'm excited. I mean, I could think of a whole bunch of clients that could really use this service, and I can't wait to tell them about it. Folks, you heard it here on the Profit with Law podcast. Every Thursday, we're here with another amazing guest sharing their wisdom, their expertise, some really cool tool, utility, service that you can use. So you definitely want to make sure you hit the subscribe button in your podcast player or on your YouTube channel, if that's where you're watching us, so that you get notified every time we release something new, which happens every single week on Thursdays. If you are looking to grow your firm, figure out how to get to that next level, try to unlock profitability beyond 10, 15%, which is where the average law firm sits, and to the 35 to 50% that our clients are getting, then you might want to set up a strategy session with us to explore what that looks like. So profitwithlaw.com/strategy session. Would love to have a conversation with you and see how we can help you. Folks, take care. We'll see you next week on another amazing guest interview. Have a good one.